It was late autumn, the kind of evening when shadows lengthen and the wind carries an eerie chill. My husband was out of town for a few days, leaving me alone in our old, creaky house. I loved the solitude, but that night, as I sat curled up with a book, I felt an unsettling energy in the air. The old house had its quirks, drafts that whispered secrets, creaks that echoed in the silence, but tonight felt different. Around 10 o'clock, I set my book down and glanced at the window. The streetlight flickered outside, illuminating the deserted road. That's when I saw him, a figure standing across the street, shrouded in darkness. He was just a silhouette, but something about him struck me as off. He was too still, too focused. I squinted, trying to make out more details, and that's when he turned his head. Our eyes met, and a chill raced down my spine. For a moment, I was frozen, my breath catching in my throat. Then, just as suddenly as it started, he smiled. It was a wide, unsettling grin that stretched across his face, and I instinctively recoiled, my heart pounding in my chest. The smile didn't waver, it was as if he found some twisted pleasure in my fear. I grabbed my phone, hesitated, then set it back down. I didn't want to call the police over a shadowy figure, who knew if he was harmless? The rational part of me wanted to believe he was just a lost passerby, but the primal instinct to flee tugged at me. I decided to distract myself, switching on every light in the house. I pulled the curtains shut, but the image of that smile lingered in my mind. The night crawled on, but I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. I locked the doors, checked the windows, and finally forced myself to turn back to my book. Every creak of the floorboards sent my heart racing. My imagination ran wild. I kept looking up, half expecting him to be standing right there in my living room. Around midnight, I heard a faint knock at the front door. It was barely audible, almost a whisper, but it jolted me upright. My heart raced again, and I felt a bead of sweat trickle down my back. Was it him? I held my breath, straining to listen. The knock came again, slightly louder this time. I felt compelled to look through the peephole, but my body wouldn't move. Then, my phone buzzed, shattering the stillness. It was a text from my husband, just checking in. Everything okay? I quickly typed back, yeah, just a little freaked out. As I hit send, I heard the knock again, this time more insistent. I cursed under my breath, I needed to see who it was. Summoning all my courage, I crept toward the door, peering through the peephole. The porch light cast a sickly yellow glow, revealing the same figure from earlier. He was closer now, his smile wider, more sinister. Panic surged within me. Who was he? What did he want? Let me in, he said, his voice low and smooth, like syrup poured over gravel. I just want to talk. Go away. I shouted, my voice trembling. I'm calling the police. He chuckled softly, a sound that sent chills up my spine. You don't need to do that. I just want to see you. His gaze pierced through me. I stumbled back from the door, frantically searching for something, anything, to defend myself. I grabbed the heavy candlestick from the coffee table, gripping it tightly in my hand. I could hear my heart pounding in my ears, drowning out everything else. The knocking stopped, and for a moment, silence enveloped the house. I held my breath, waiting for the sound to return. Just as I began to feel a flicker of hope that he had left, I heard the faintest whisper, just outside my door, I can see you, you know. I dropped the candlestick, frozen in fear. It felt like an eternity, but eventually, I mustered the strength to rush to my phone and dial 911. I barely managed to get the words out before the line went dead. The call had dropped. I turned to the window, my heart racing. He was standing there, right outside, his eyes fixed on me, a predatory glint within them. I fumbled for the curtains, pulling them closed just as he raised a hand to the glass, tapping lightly. Why are you hiding? He asked, his voice chillingly calm. Then, something happened that I'll never forget. A loud siren pierced the night, echoing down the street. I turned back to the window, and in that instant, the figure was gone. No trace, no sound, he had vanished as if he were never there. Moments later, the police arrived, and I bolted to the door to let them in, spilling out my story in a rush. They searched the area but found nothing. I wanted to feel relieved, but the dread settled in my stomach. As they left, one officer paused, looking me in the eye. "You might want to keep your blinds closed tonight. We've had reports of someone matching that description lingering around the neighborhood. If you see him again, don't hesitate to call." As they drove away, I locked the door and settled back into my living room, the weight of fear heavy in the air. The thought of that smile haunted me. Later that night, I finally fell into a restless sleep, but around dawn, I woke to the sound of my phone buzzing. It was another message from my husband. "Hey, I'm back early. Let me in." I felt a jolt of panic and rushed to the front door. Peering through the peephole, my heart sank as I saw his face, a familiar smile stretching across his lips. And then I remembered, my husband was supposed to be at least 3 hours away.